Hi, everybody. Good morning. My name is Nanika Edwards, and today I am sharing some of the results of a language experiment that I conducted over the space of a week. The experiment being to see if I could become conversant in a language, or maybe at least two or three languages, over the course of a week by applying certain turbo boosting strategies, if I could put it like that, right? So today I'm going to focus on one of the first languages that I looked at, which was Latin. And one of the reasons why I chose Latin is because, or I say the main reason is because as a multilingual person, I felt that it would be useful, and also as an English speaker, I felt that it would be useful to know some Latin so that I can make more sense of English and also of, which is a Germanic language, but also which has some connection to Latin, but also so that I could also make better sense, more reflexive and instinctive sense of languages like Spanish and French, which I also speak. So I felt that so I felt that becoming familiar with Latin to a certain extent would be useful for me, both as an English speaker and also as a linguist. So I focused on Latin for this during the space of a week, during the third week of March 2025. Today is the 2nd of April 2025, and I'm preparing this video for the 3rd of March, not the 3rd of March, for next week. Sorry, my mistake. I'm preparing this video for next week, sometime next week, to share this, most likely on Tuesday next week, the 2nd week of April. So right, so let me let you know how my language experiment has gone. So first of all, I opted to do Latin on Duolingo, and as I would have said, that's just a car passing by. I don't know why men like to have, it's usually men, I think, who have cars, vehicles with these loud engines. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But anyway, well, obviously, I know men think differently from women, but still, I can never understand why men would want to have loud engines. Anyway, let me get back to the topic at hand. Um, I don't know if the video is going to pick that up, but yes, I decided to focus on Latin and I decided to go with Duolingo. Now, typically, I have not generally been a big fan of Duolingo, and that's largely because when I tried Duolingo, like, I don't know, maybe about a decade ago, I think it was about a decade ago that I tried Duolingo, a decade or more ago, when Duolingo had just started, I think. I tried Duolingo and I just thought that the vocabulary that was taught and the system, I just felt that that the vocabulary was not immediately applicable, and that some of the sentences were kind of ridiculous, like sentences and phrases you would not typically expect to use in an interesting and realistic conversation. So and also the progress was quite slow, and it just did not seem like Duolingo provided functional language skills to me. So I haven't generally been a fan of Duolingo, and I've always felt that if somebody plans a budget-friendly course just around content that is freely available on YouTube or other social media platforms, or even just online, that somebody, online as in, something that you can use a search engine to find. I felt that somebody could enjoy greater, faster progress with language learning goals. So I was not a big fan of Duolingo. However, I have tried Duolingo thanks to the encouragement of my nephew and brother-in-law. And one of the languages that I picked up for this week-long experiment that really is now extending beyond that, of course, because I'd like to continue learning the languages that I've spotlighted. Well, yeah. Okay, see, when you start making these indirect sentences that are long and involved and almost like these German sentences where you don't know where you started and where you're finishing. I can't even remember what I was saying. But anyway, I did this week-long experiment with Latin, and let you know how it went. So I started with Duolingo, and I am happy that I went with Duolingo. I chose Duolingo for Latin because I don't think that I would be able to find something as systematic and consistent as Duolingo on YouTube for Latin right now. So that's why I decided to go with Duolingo. I have no regrets about it. So, long story short, I have learned a lot of useful terminology in Latin that is already amplifying, that's already amplifying my understanding of English. So, for example, one of the first things I learned when I started doing Duolingo is the word soror. Soror. What does that remind you of as an English speaker? Does it not make you think of sorority, right? Sorority. Soror means sister. What about frater? Frater means brother. That's right. It makes me think of fraternity. Then there was another word, urbe, 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 which means city, city. What does that make you think of? Yes, of course, it makes us think of urban. So I've learned a lot of interesting words so far that have helped to deepen my foundational understanding of my own language, English. Excuse me. So, um, so I've learned quite a bit. How much have I learned? Well, to be honest, during the week that I focused on Latin, I did miss a good few days, like maybe 2 to 3 days I missed during that week with Latin. And as a result, I haven't learned as much as I could have. Also, I went at a very gradual pace for Latin because for me, Latin is not a language that I'm necessarily going to be, speaking with using to speak with other people because it's not a living language in a sense. And so my interest is based purely on curiosity, not on a desire to communicate. So because my interest is a cursory kind of interest where communication is concerned, because I can't communicate with anybody in Latin, I didn't really put the pedal to the metal like I would with other languages. So my progress was moderate, but I learned quite a bit. I learned some family names. I learned the names of things like girl, boy, man, woman. I learned also the word for university and also the word for the United States and New York and America and things like that, right? Of course, I don't know if America was a word when Latin was developed, but it must have been because they have it as a word in this program. What I like about Duolingo, though, if I can come back to how I feel about Duolingo, because I've kind of upgraded how I feel about Duolingo a little bit. I wouldn't say that I'm an absolute fan, but it's been a far better experience than I expected. And I think since the time that I first tried it, they have perhaps refined refined what they actually offer. So, um, so what I love about Duolingo is the repetitive approach that they take to teaching languages. They constantly repeat words that come up in their lessons. Like when you learn new vocabulary in new lessons, they will also pull in vocabulary from old lessons so that you're constantly reviewing. So I like that. I love that you keep seeing the same vocabulary over and over, because repetition in any subject area when you're learning something is very important, especially the older that you get, because the memory of an adult is not the same as as the memory of a child. And even though I am gifted linguistically, I pick up languages pretty easily. As an adult, I can feel the difference. When I was in high school, I had a photographic memory for languages. I could see a new word once, and that was all I needed. I could remember. There are words that I still remember today from my classes or from studying on my own when I was in high school, right? So that's really how powerful my photographic memory, how powerful my photographic memory was. So yes, I am grateful for the repetitive strategy that Duolingo uses. So long story short, after the space of a week, I could say that if I had the time, because I haven't always had the time, I have life happening. I'm an adult, I have to run errands, help family members with things, and especially my mother, help my mother run errands sometimes, run my own errands, get my professional work done, work on my books, things like that, because I am also an author. Because of that, I was not able to really hunker down like you need to really make massive progress. But the progress that I did make was appreciable. It was appreciable. It was significant. And so I'd like to continue with Duolingo. I missed a week. I've missed about a week and a half since I started doing that, but I'd like to jump back in and get going again. And so that's it. Yes, it is possible to become, at least for Latin, maybe not conversant, but yes, you can kind of become conversant because they do teach you literal sentences that you can use in a conversation in a sense, but you'd have to be in some special group of Latin lovers who want to actually maybe try using Latin the way it may have been used in the past or something like that, to apply Latin in a conversational context. But so far, I'm very satisfied with the experience that I've had with Duolingo. And so that's the first language I wanted to tackle and let you know about with respect to this language experiment. So I hope this was useful. If you speak English, or if you speak another language, like a Latin language, like Spanish, French, and of course, now that I'm learning Brazilian Portuguese, if you speak Portuguese, whether it's Portuguese of Portugal or Portuguese of Brazil, yes, I think learning Latin can be useful, or maybe Italian or something like that. Latin would be a useful language to explore. So that's it. I hope this was helpful. Maybe you will try Duolingo, or maybe you'll try something else. But yes, definitely possible with the resources that are available now that were not available in the past. When I was in high school or university learning languages, with these resources, yep, you can add a turbo booster rocket launcher to your language learning strategies and really light speed forward. So that's it. I will present a new language within this language experiment tomorrow. So you can look out for that. Okay, bye.